Welcome to Subramani. If you have been following me on Twitter, you will notice that on Twitter I comment about movies, I comment about politics, I comment about Hinduism, religion, etc., etc. And but on my channel, I am very particular that I don't talk about any of those things. But here I am going to talk about something which is very scary as far as I am concerned. When in a country laws are made, it is expected that all of us will respect the law, right? So if 30th June you have to file your return, 30th June you have to file your return. If you file it on 31st of, if you file it on 1st of July, you will pay a fine, you will pay a tax. Or if it's 31st of July, you will pay a fine if you file it on 1st of August. That's fair. It says parking, no parking, all those things, right? So whether it is income tax or on the road, rules are made to be followed. You can't defy the law, right? You cannot say, oh, I'm above the law, nothing will happen to me. Gundas will come out and protest if you try to touch me. That, well, 99% of the population can't do that. Let aside a few people. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking of somebody like a Reserve Bank of India who was told in I think 2015, 2015, in the case where RBI versus Jayantilal Mistry, where Jayantilal Mistry said under the RTI we need all this information. The Supreme Court said yes, you have a right to all this information, but we're still not getting it, and now that's being taken up in September 2022, 7 years after the first order, when it was well settled that the government or the RBI should give the details when asked for by people under the RTI, under the parliament, wherever. Whenever I ask for details, I mean, it's ultimately when you hear of a 10 lakh crore bailout. I'm not exaggerating, just find out the number of zeros in that. 10 lakh crore bailout over the last 5 years. It is not a government bailout, it is your bailout or my bailout, right? We are funding the bailout, we are paying taxes, so that's being funded. And when I say we, I don't mean only the people paying direct taxes. Direct taxes is pretty small in India even today. It is the people who pay GST, which means you, me, your maid, your driver, and even the beggar on the road, when he or she buys something, they pay GST. So every one of us in a democracy pays some kind of a tax, right? So some very visible when you pay the advance tax, not very visible when you buy a product and you pay a huge GST, right? For example, a car in India, there is more taxes, I think, than metals. The biggest component of cost for your car has to be taxes at various stages, right? So it is our money which is going. Secondly, when you're doing research, I mean, this is more for people who are DIY research guys. I mean, like how I was 20 years back, 30 years back, whatever. So we used to get a lot of information from the published sources. We did not have we were not privy to inside information from companies, etc. So when a company said something, we would check with the bankers, and if the banker didn't tell us, that was fine. It was the banker's prerogative not to tell us. But on the basis of audit reports of banks, on the basis of commentary by RBI, etc., you could find out something. But when you ask the bank, Reserve Bank of India, why this information is not available, that is just stonewalling, right? And I don't want to comment too much because we are already sub judice. 13th September we have a case. But if there are 10,000, I think that is the number I saw, we have 10,000 willful defaulters. I'll get the number, I'll tell you and these are all mostly public sector bank defaults. Now, if you're a private sector bank and you run into bad problems, it's bad luck, boss, but you just shut down, right? How many NBFCs have shut down, right? Diwan Housing shut down, PMC shut down, but of course PMC and Diwan Housing are slightly sensitive places, so I'll not talk about that. But if you are a private limited company, or you're a or even you're a public limited but privately funded, if you manage your debts badly, if you can't collect properly, you just close down. The success story of an HDFC or HDFC bank is the ability to collect as much and not just ability to lend includes the ability to collect. Here you have NPS, and I'll get you the figure. I think 10 lakh crores were written off in the last 5 years, and this was informed to the Rajya Sabha by Bhagwat Karad, Minister of Finance. This I'm reading from an article on The Wire, and it's not something which I read very often, but this was highlighted by a friend, Bala, and he sent me this article, and the number of willful defaulters stood at 10,306. Now you and I may be able to name 3 or 4, the Nirav Modis of the world who ran away and therefore became very famous, infamous, whatever you want to say, but there are 10,000 others. Maybe you'll be able to name 6. So there are 10,300 others with whom you don't want to deal, right? I don't want to deal with a Chinese mobile manufacturer if I know that Vivo ran away without paying the dues. Tomorrow they could just get sacked, and government of India could just put them out of business. So I would rather buy now this information is available to me, and therefore I am able to take this decision. What happens if I am buying a car from a manufacturer who is on a defaulter list? One day he'll have a problem, and that day I will stop getting good service, right? So I want to know all those aspects, even as a consumer of other products other than financial information, right? If I want to buy shares, I of course want to know whether he's a defaulter, whether he's a willful defaulter, and what happened, right? So unfortunately I can't get all that information in one place and very easily. That is what I'm saying. Somewhere in the act it also says the chartered accountant has to mention that the company has defaulted, etc. But how many companies are you going to search for? I want it in one location, and so that I can go and see the companies in which I have invested. Are they there in that list, or are they not there in that list? For me that is very important, and for me it's very important that I get that information from RBI, not from some WhatsApp university, right? So today social media is full of lists that you can get. I don't want that. I want it with the RBI stamp. Of course, some names which they say is missing is Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, but I also heard that Vijay Mallya has repaid a big portion of his money. I am not very sure about that. At least that's what one of the big banks told me. If they have written off so much money, we have a right to know what they have written off. Now, when RBI says they will not give this data, it gives me another example of how the DISCOMs, the state electricity guys, would say, oh, this is all, we can't collect this, so this is transmission and distribution losses, this is what we are not collecting from the farmers. That's wrong. You have to know how many free units you are giving to the farmers, so that tomorrow if the government were to give the subsidy, I want to know how much is the transmission and distribution losses because of your inefficiencies. That is different from what the farmers are being given. Now this is also very important in financial services. I want to know how much is the connivance of the bank employee in doing that. That will help me take a view on whether I should buy the bank shares, right? So I'm very scared of PSU bank shares, because I do not know whether it is really a true and fair view. There is a chartered accountant who is saying this bank is showing a true and fair view, and there is somebody who is telling me, I will not tell you how much are the NPAs, right, or how much are the potential NPAs. I want to know the red flags, because if I don't know that, I do not know whether this bank is a going concern or it is assumed to be a going concern because the government will bail out like this with 10 lakh. I mean, it takes a lot of time to remember this figure, 10 lakh crores. Right, 10 lakh crores of your money and my money has gone into bailing out these banks. And if it is going to happen, last 5 years it is 10 lakh crores, next 5 years it could be 12 lakh crores. What's happening? Who's looking at stopping it? Is it RBI? Is it publicly available information? Why is it not publicly available? Again, it is the banks protested, saying, oh, this is a relationship we have with the clients. I think this is all nonsense. Most people can go and get all the information which they want from the banker for love and fresh air. So it's not so difficult to get it out, but it is very painful for a small investor to know all this, right? So and they also quote their confidentiality issues, but I don't think confidentiality should matter for a dead issue, right? Some company is not paying you, so it is an NPA, so it's not current information. I'm not asking you last month how much cash did they deposit, kitna sales hua, kitna kharcha hua. That is sensitive information. To tell me that so and so SR group has not paid, I don't see why it is so sensitive, right? So then you go and invite Tata Steel or somebody and say, please check over this company, please check over Bhushan Steel, they are not paying me. That's different. But why does it become so big? Simply because the public doesn't even know this, and the public is dealing with such criminals. 10,306, remember the number of defaulters, and 10 lakh crores, that is the amount which is being defaulted. We have a right to know why so much money is being written off, what is being done to improve it, what is being done. Why can't you name these 10,000 people? At least name the top 500, name the top 100, right? So people who are being very virtuous while they come on social media and talk, suddenly you find that they have got a lot of defaulting, or rather they got a lot of actions in their business which has made them defaulters. So I don't think confidentiality is something which is worrying me too much, because anyway somewhere else I'm giving that data, right? I'm giving that information. My auditor is saying, but my auditor may be saying for one company, and I have to go and check through 40 companies if I've invested in 40 companies. That's fine. Companies which I already have, it is my call. I have to find out whether they are an NPA. But what about potential 200 companies in which I could be an investor? How am I going to find out about all this unless it's available to me in one place? So whether it's a willful defaulter, whether it's an operational defaulter, what are you trying to do to recover the money? Nothing is known to us. And even if the bank says that they have fiduciary relationship with the banks, or RBI says they have fiduciary relationship with banks, I really don't know. Give me a break, because even though we have had good governors in the past, most of these governors have not done much for the retail guy, whether it is giving information or hiding information, whatever, however you want to look at it, or whether mis-selling by banks in the bank branches, sitting in the bank branches. All those things have happened with impunity. You and I have really suffered at the hands of the banks. It's time the regulator woke up, regulated banks better, and shared all the information with us, saying why is the NPA figure so big, and why is it being called a government bailout? It's not a government bailout, it's a taxpayer bailout. You and I have paid for something. We have paid a very, very big bill, 10 lakh crores, and we don't even know how this money is going to be spent, simply because 5 years later we will be signing another check for maybe just that 10 becomes 15. So 15 lakh crores is what we will do as a bailout unless we take action today. Hopefully 13th of September, the government, the Supreme Court will wrap the knuckles and tell the regulators that you have to share data with the end user, who unfortunately or fortunately for you is the guy who is picking up the bailout tab. Thank you.